Tom Brady is out on the recruiting trail yet again, which should surprise absolutely nobody. How do we view some of the more important remaining Buccaneers free agents? And we take a look at the fluid situation that is the NFC as Deshaun Watson is on his way to the NFC South and the Packers lost their best weapon. Let's go.
Every day.
What's up, Bucs Nation, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarko, joined by my stellar co-host, David Harrison. Both of us cover your Buccaneers for SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And when we aren't here or there, you can find us on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarko_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at Bucs_Nation.
Yeah, thanks again for making us your first listen or your first view every single day. James, Tom Brady is back on his recruiting missions, trying to lure another former NFC South receiver to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That, according to Dove Kleiman. Am I saying that correctly?
Dove Kleiman.
That's what I said. Dove Kleiman,
Yes,
who tweeted out that according to Fox, so he's reporting that some other person reported, Tom Brady has been reaching out to former Atlanta Falcons wide receiver and Tennessee Titans Houston Oilers receiver Julio Jones to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jones played just 10 games last season due to injury. Nobody saw that coming. Everybody saw that coming. And now Brady wants to add him to an already solid wide receiver room that features the likes of Tyler Johnson and Brashad Perryman. James, we actually got a voicemail about this very, very topic. So let's dive into that.
And but just a couple questions. Question number one is, what are the odds that we trade down from the first round to address a couple needs, defensive tackle, cornerback, safety? And the second question is, what are the odds that we sign one of three players, which are Larry Legend out of retirement, or Julio Jones, who just got cut today, or Tyrann Mathieu. He's a free agent safety, but he's familiar with Bruce Arians. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys. Have a good day. God bless. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much for the voicemail. And yeah, that call came in before this report from Fox that was then tweeted out by Dove. So a little ahead of the curve there. Let's start with the Julio Jones question, because that's what kickstarted all of this. And David, I'm gonna say, and I don't like that I'm gonna say this, I give Julio Jones signing with the Buccaneers a 45% chance of happening. If you are being recruited by Tom Brady, that means he obviously very much wants you on his football team. And Tom Brady is not a player that a lot of other players are apt to say no to. So the fact that Julio is being recruited by a guy who could take him to a Super Bowl after that same guy took a Super Bowl away from him is going to be enticing to be a guy who's part of a room, who's not relied upon the way he was in Atlanta or Tennessee, and he can just be a player that's out there to help when needed. But Evans is the guy, Godwin is the guy, Russell Gage is going to get his. I would say if the money is not a factor for Julio and he comes in on a low deal, I would say it's pretty close to 50-50 that Julio plays for the Bucs.
Yeah, so you put a percentage on it. I'm going to put odds on it, James, and I'm going to say that I think if you were to bet on it, you would probably win $28 for every three that you bet. So 28-3 odds is what I'm going to give Julio Jones joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Took me a second, but I got it. Good grief.
So let's move to Tyrann Mathieu. I completely agree with everything you said. Let's move to Tyrann Mathieu. So this is an interesting conversation because you and Evan talked about it. And obviously, I think everybody would want the Honey Badger on their team. There's no reason to not. I then followed up your conversation with my conversation about money, and you brought up an interesting idea saying that I was wrong. So my point was basically that as much as we love Tyrann, as much as we want him on the team, and yes, there's that connection to the Arizona Cardinals, to Bruce Arians, all that stuff. Again, his market value is expected to be around $14 million. Now, to be honest with you, safeties in recent years have not gotten to what market value says they're supposed to get. A lot of times that is kind of the way that things kind of develop. But I think Tyrann Mathieu is a little bit different because I think everybody understands his leadership, the veteran value, the intelligence, and obviously the talent that he brings onto the field, the Super Bowl experience, playoff experience, all that stuff. So I think he's a guy who actually could, at least get close to market value, maybe 12 million, but not 14. But still, 12 million, I think, is maybe a little bit rich. What do you think about I don't want to call it an argument because I want Tyrann on the team, but just my concerns, I'll say, that maybe Tyrann is a little bit of too high of a goal for this year's squad.
I think your points were valid. Absolutely. My take on it is if, and it is a big if, and it is something that you brought up, if he takes a little bit less to come and play for a championship caliber team, takes that Brady discount, gives the Bucs a little bit of a discount because of the connection to Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles. Let's say, for argument's sake, that it's 1 year, $10 million. Okay. You can give him a signing bonus of $6 million. His base salary is $4 million. You add a void year. Well, now his cap hit is only $7 million. And you spread that out a little bit, brings the cost down, makes it affordable to bring in Tyrann Mathieu. And something that did pop up after Evan and I had our conversation was a picture of the Honey Badger with his family out at, excuse me, it was either Disney or Universal Studios, something like that. Well, part of Tyrann Mathieu's family photo included Todd Bowles' son. So I feel like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, when he's got the board up with like all the strings around it, and he turns around and he's doing this. Like we're connecting dots here, but I'm going to do the same thing I did with Julio. If I'm putting a percentage on it, I give Tyrann Mathieu playing for the Buccaneers a 25% chance, which is still, I think, relatively high, but it's going to take some work.
Yeah. I will give Tyrann Mathieu playing for the Buccaneers 31-9 odds. What about Larry Fitzgerald?
Man, you're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. Larry Fitzgerald, 0% chance. It's not happening. He's done.
Yeah, I agree. 0% chance. So that's going to wrap up that conversation on this topic. Great question. Hopefully Tyrann Mathieu and Julio Jones join the Buccaneers. I will not stop despite your finger pointing. What do you want, James Jericho?
He had one more question.
Oh, what was it? My bad.
The odds that the Buccaneers trade down to try to accumulate more draft picks.
That's correct.
I put it at under 10%. There's not a whole lot of room to trade down unless you're trading completely out of the first round. The Buccaneers have enough holes on this team that they will get someone in the first round and get that fifth-year option on whichever rookie they draft.
Yeah, I think there's too many. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's too many holes, too many options. I was trying to come up with a clever number, but I could not come up with a clever number. So I don't think, 10% is a nice round number, so we'll say that, but I don't believe this is the year to trade back if you're the Buccaneers. I think this is the year to go grab a talented player. But great question, great questions. Appreciate the phone call, Anthony. We are going to have more here on the Locked On Bucs podcast, but first we're going to talk about college basketball because there's madness happening on the court, including for teams like Illinois and Ohio State, who has to beat an old woman, is what I'm told.
Sister Jean.
Yeah, Sister Jean. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and info if you're into that kind of thing. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again, Bucs fans, for making us your first listener, your first view of the day. Disclaimer, we do not advocate the assaulting of elderly people. I just don't understand all of these basketball traditions because I don't watch college basketball. Make sure you're following the Locked On NFL podcast like I do. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signed Ryan Jensen, Aaron Stinney, and Carlton Davis. They extended Chris Godwin. Yay. They traded for Shaq Mason. Good move. And they freed up cap space with a restructure of Mike Evans' contract, like the fourth restructuring of his contract that he's had since he signed it, on top of offering to take a pay cut. Is there a man in the world who's more dedicated to his team than Mike Evans? I think not. Now, there are still more holes to fill in players from last year's team that will garner attention in free agency. We talked about them a little bit on yesterday's episode. By we, I mean me. Which players are the most important for the Buccaneers to bring back? James, we've got 5 names on the list, starting in alphabetical order to not give away anything. Leonard Fournette, William Gholston, by last name, Robert Gronkowski, Jason Pierre-Paul, I had to do the alphabet real quick, and Ndamukong Suh. So we're going to rank them from most important to re-sign next to least important to re-sign next. Listen, all 5 guys important to the team. Nobody is a loser in this situation. James, I will kick it off. My number 1 guy the Buccaneers need to re-sign is Ndamukong Suh. Why? Because Vita Vea cannot do it on his own, and I understand that the Buccaneers want to get more pass rush out of their front, their defensive front, and I completely agree with that. But listen, before you improve on the product, you have to at least maintain the product. You don't go buy shiny rims for a car that you don't own or a car that you're borrowing, because it doesn't make any sense. You have to keep the current product at its current state before you go adding improvements. And Ndamukong Suh helps do that. You can hit the draft. There are talented defensive linemen in the NFL draft that can help you maintain the status quo. So Ndamukong Suh is number 1. Number 2 is Leonard Fournette, because Keyshawn Vaughn also cannot do it on his own, but I'm a little bit less concerned about the running back group. When you're talking about Tom Brady and some of the available free agents out there, Melvin Gordon's still out there, Marlon Mack is still out there, and the draft has some talented guys as well. The Buccaneers could put together a serviceable unit. That's why they're not number 1. Number 3 is Rob Gronkowski. The reason Gronk's not higher is because of Cam Brate, and because, again, a talented tight end group in the NFL draft. I love me some Gronk, and obviously I think Tom Brady with Gronk is a better version of Tom Brady. But because you have Cam Brate and the potential to add some other guys in the draft and even some free agent targets that are potentially still available, I don't think it's a need. It's more of it's an accelerator, if you will, not so much a requirement. Will Gholston is next on my list. If you can get your entire starting defensive front back, then you have that run defense in place. You go find yourself some pass rushers for the interior to put them in special packages, and you're cooking with peanut oil. JPP, I love the man, but he's last. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka showed a lot of good things. You know the team is confident in Anthony Nelson. Shaq Barrett is on the other side for a reason, and there are still talented edge rushers later in the draft if you need to bolster the group. That is my top order, 1 through 5. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell you why you're wrong quite yet, but I do find this interesting. Out of the 5, you and I have two players in the same position. So we view this very, very differently.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll get into why you're wrong as I read off my list. My number 1 is Rob Gronkowski. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number 1, it's because he's coming back. It's happening. So
he is coming back.
He might as well put him at number 1 because he is going to be re-signed. The other reason, as much as I love Cameron Brate can't block ever at all for any reason ever. So having just him as basically your tight end, it's not good enough. It's not enough. You have to have Gronk there because he is the dual threat tight end. Not only that, but he's also a decoy. I don't think anyone is looking at Cameron Brate as a decoy, freeing up guys like Godwin, like Gage, like Mike. That sounds so weird to say.
Like Gage, yeah. That's a very good point, actually. I did not think of, to be honest with you.
He is the total package, first ballot Hall of Famer, Rob Gronkowski, number 1.
I changed my list.
Number 2, the first of the players that we have in the same spot is Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette showed a lot of improvement over his time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is a legitimate dual threat running back as far as the running game and the passing game. He established himself as the number 1 guy in this offense out of the backfield. And another year in that system, another year with Brady, another year under Byron Leftwich is only going to make him better. Unfortunately, I think he's probably priced himself out unless the Buccaneers can work out maybe a 2 or a 3-year deal the way they did with Carlton Davis, like they did with Chris Godwin. And then we're talking about extending those void years later into the contract, spread some of that hit out a little bit, and potentially restructure next year the way they have with Mike Evans and Cameron Brate. My number 3 guy is William Gholston. William Gholston is another guy that has just continued to improve. He's younger than Ndamukong Suh. He's going to be less expensive than Ndamukong Suh, and he's almost as effective. He is arguably the best run-stopping defensive lineman on this team. And like you pointed out, David, it would be nice to get more pass rush out of that defensive line. But part of the reason your run defense has been so good over the past couple of years has been the combination of Vita Vea and William Gholston. And no shade to Suh, but William Gholston is a little bit more effective in that aspect because Ndamukong Suh is a little bit more of that downhill bull rush, get after the quarterback style of defensive lineman. My number 4 guy is Ndamukong Suh. I'd love to have Suh back. I really, truly would. But I think he's getting a little older. Maybe he's about a half a step slower, and he's going to be more expensive. So when you take a look at the situation the Buccaneers have with the salary cap, and I know we're talking about trying to rework things and bring in guys like Tyrann Mathieu and re-sign Leonard Fournette and re-sign Gronk and, all of these moves, it has to end somewhere, right? We saw that with Jordan Whitehead. We saw that with Alex Kappa. There has to be a line in the sand. And I think it would be better off for the Buccaneers to look at that number 27 pick in the first round of the NFL draft and say, you know what? Here's where we're going to replace Ndamukong Suh. We're going to get him on the cheap because it's a rookie contract. We're going to get a 5th-year option. And this is going to be Vita Vea's long-term partner here along the defensive line. And finally, the second player we have in the same spot, Jason Pierre-Paul, and it's for the exact reasons you just said. I love JPP. I love the energy he brings. I love the leadership that he brings. But this is a man whose body is beginning to break down, and he's going to come at a hefty price. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka showed some fantastic stuff in his rookie season. He's only going to get better the more he's on the field. I want to see him as the starter in 2022 because I think the sky's the limit for this kid. I think he complements Shaquille Barrett really, really well. And maybe early in the year, you're going to have some offenses not give him the respect that he probably should get because he is young, because he is a rookie, and because he didn't get a lot of playing time last year. They're going to focus on Shaq. They're going to focus on Vita, and Tryon-Shoyinka is going to blow up some quarterbacks because he's going to get those one-on-one opportunities and he's going to win them. So I would love for JPP to return, but ranking these 5, he's at the bottom of my list.
Yeah, I think you just predicted Devante Wyatt to the Buccaneers at number 27. I think that's what just happened, actually.
Sure. Yeah, let's mark it down. Write it in Sharpie.
Write it in Sharpie. On a sticky note, put it in your pocket. Don't lose it.
That's right. No matter what. All right. Well, we are going to talk about how the NFC is just absolutely tilted on its head coming up in just a moment. But first, we have to talk about something that tilts me on my head because of how delicious it is. And I'm talking about Built Bars, especially the Puffs. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are going to be a fan favorite with some incredible flavors like yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They are all delicious. Built.com also has Puffs mixed boxes available. So if you're not sure which one you want to try, you can get all 3. You can decide which one your favorite is. Spoiler alert, mine is the banana cream pie. All the Built Bars, the Puffs, and the OGs covered in 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Most of the Built Bars, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy, and they nail it every time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. You are going to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED 15 for 15% off at Built.com. Wrapping things up here on a Friday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. James Yarko, David Harrison on Twitter at JYarko_Bucs. at dharrison82. And the NFC South is not a walk in the park for the Buccaneers. Deshaun Watson is on his way. He has narrowed his choices down to two teams, the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. And the Green Bay Packers kind of stink now. A little bit, they kind of stink. They've traded wide receiver Devante Adams for a first and a second round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. So the rich get richer out there in the AFC West. And I can't wait to watch every AFC West game I possibly can all year long because they're electric.
Just put every divisional matchup in that division on primetime. Just
Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, all AFC West games.
I wouldn't even be mad. Like I would legitimately be interested in watching every single one of those matchups. The Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers were told on Thursday night that they were out of the running for Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, and that he has narrowed his choices down to the New Orleans Saints and his hometown Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have delayed Matt Ryan's bonus that was due Friday until Tuesday, which is an interesting part of this whole process that they're allowed to even do that, which will help them in the potential trade. Obviously, this is important to the Buccaneers because they're going to be facing Deshaun Watson one way or another twice a season or twice every year that Deshaun Watson is with New Orleans or Atlanta. For one, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but the fact that Deshaun Watson is literally sitting back, picking and choosing from NFL teams that he's going to get traded to after everything that's happened is a little bit doesn't sit good in the pit of my stomach. I'm not going to lie. But here's the thing. I'm not worried about Deshaun Watson coming to the NFC South. I said this on yesterday's episode. I'll say it again for those who didn't see that episode. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, here's what I think. Whoever gets Deshaun Watson, you're giving up so much to do it that in 2022, it doesn't matter because you're giving up draft capital. You assume at least your first and second round draft picks this year, at least. And if all the rumors are true and the stories are to be told are true, you're also going to give up players. So let's look at the New Orleans Saints. The biggest rumors I've heard, James, with the New Orleans Saints is you're giving up your best offensive lineman and your best pass rusher. So you're going to give up your first or second pick of this year's draft. You're going to give up your best offensive lineman and you're going to give up your best pass rusher, all to get Deshaun Watson to pair him with Michael Thomas and a bunch of dudes who couldn't catch footballs for Jameis Winston last year. So that's the team that you're going to mount. And on the other side of the ball, you're going to have Cam Jordan, who in between Good Morning Football appearances, sacks quarterbacks from time to time. That's your defense. Not worried about it. So New Orleans Saints in that circumstance, I'm not scared of you. Atlanta Falcons, you're going to give up Matt Ryan, who got it. His better days are behind him. You don't have any receivers because the Buccaneers just signed the best one you could have had. The only thing you have is Kyle Pitts, if you're not giving him up in the trade, which I don't think you are. I think the rumor is Deion Jones, and I don't know who else is rumor, but you imagine there's probably one more player involved in there, and they don't have a whole lot of really top shelf players to give away. So the players you're giving away are the best of what honestly is not the best crew in the world anyway. So you're giving up draft picks, you're giving up players, you're getting Deshaun Watson, and if expectations are correct, you're only getting him for half the season, whether that's 8 or 9 weeks is still to be determined. But I believe he's going to be out for at least 8 weeks following suspension, unless his lawyer does some magical tricks and gets every single civil case against him tossed. Even if he settles, James, I believe the NFL is going to suspend him for the sheer amount of cases that he's going to be settling here. Those are the reasons I'm not worried about it. Now, come back in 2023 when these teams have a little bit more cap space, when they have some more draft capital back, when they have the opportunity to potentially flip some other talent for some more draft capital, and they get Deshaun Watson for a full season with training camp and with a year under his belt learning the system, then maybe we'll have some concerns. But I'm talking about 2022. I'm not worried about Deshaun Watson coming to the NFC South.
I'm with you on Atlanta. And when I was talking to Evan about it on Wednesday's episode, I said there's no way he picks Atlanta, right? When I said that, full disclosure, I don't know a ton of Deshaun Watson history. I know about him with the Houston Texans. I did not know, and outside of that, I knew that his mom got a house from work done as part of his charity when Deshaun Watson was growing up. Right. Okay. I did not realize he was a ball boy for the Atlanta Falcons, and that was the team he grew up loving when I said there's no way he chooses Atlanta. Yeah. So if he does choose Atlanta, I'm with you. I'm not worried about 2022. If he chooses the New Orleans Saints, I am worried about 2022 because the Saints already showed without Winston, without Breeze, they can tread water and they can find a way to work themselves into the playoffs with Diet Tebow at quarterback. Okay. So let's say that Deshaun Watson gets 8 games, right? I think it'll probably end up being an 8-game suspension down to 6 on appeal. For argument's sake, let's say I'm right. It happens every once in a while. That means Deshaun Watson is missing a third of the season, right? Just barely over a third, but a third of the season. He gets Michael Thomas back, somebody that Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill and was it Trevor Siemian? Those guys didn't have last year. We don't know Alvin Kamara's situation, but the New Orleans Saints are the Dumbledores of the cap. They are wizards. They figure out how to get things done. I swear, David, I would not be the least bit surprised that whichever team gets Deshaun Watson ends up with Odell Beckham Jr. You just had the Los Angeles Rams sign Allen Robinson. They have the money to get Odell back, but you still have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods over there. Might be a few too many cooks in the kitchen at that point.
Yeah.
If the Falcons land Odell Beckham Jr. or the Saints figure out how to land Odell Beckham Jr. after getting Deshaun Watson, that's tough. And I understand you're giving up draft capital and you're giving up starters. You're going to lose an offensive lineman. They're going to turn around. They're going to get one right back. You're going to lose probably a player or two on the defense. I've seen CJ Gardner-Johnson's name thrown around out there. The Saints still have one of the best defenses in the National Football League. Deshaun Watson with New Orleans in 2022 is a problem.
So I see where you're coming from, but I remind you, the New Orleans Saints last year, who were in playoff contention towards the end of the season, had the 7th easiest schedule in the National Football League.
Yeah, but still got to win the games.
Or the 7th easy. The 22nd hardest is what I meant to say. Sorry. They had the 22nd hardest. And yeah, you still have to win the games. I get that. This year, James, they have the 7th hardest schedule.
For now.
By the time Deshaun Watson, that's true, but by the time Deshaun Watson comes back, this thing could be 0-7, 0-8, 0-6, depending on what the suspension is. And that's a really big hole to dig out of. There's no way to prove one of us right or one of us wrong. At the end of the day, we'll see where he lands, and we'll see if our feelings come to be realized.
Yeah, and real quick before we wrap things up here, the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, who just signed the super ultra mega deal, they're dumb. They're super duper dumb. Yeah. And David, you called it out on yesterday's episode. You said the NFC is a 2-team race between the Los Angeles Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of Davante Adams coming out saying, I'm not playing on the franchise tag. I'm not doing it. Yeah, well, he's not playing for the Green Bay Packers. Davante Adams traded to the Las Vegas Raiders for a 1st and 2nd round pick. He gets a 5-year extension, 5-year worth almost $150 million. Yeah. And apparently it came out afterwards. Aaron Rodgers knew this was going to happen when he signed his extension, which makes me say, then why'd you do it?
Yeah.
And Davante Adams was offered the same amount with the Green Bay Packers, allegedly, as he was with the Las Vegas Raiders. And he said, no, trade me. So, you might very well be correct. Of course, now we can see Odell Beckham Jr. end up in Green Bay.
Potentially.
But you were spot on. It looks like right now it's a 2-team race, and then go let the AFC teams beat the ever-loving crap out of one another. And, easy walk in the park for whoever comes out of the NFC to win the Super Bowl.
I can't wait to see what happens in the AFC West, man. I want all 4 of those teams in the playoffs. I don't even care.
Yes.
I want all 4 of those teams in the playoffs. Listen, if you're Davante Adams, and I don't know the motivation behind this whole situation, but basically you just watch the quarterback, literally. So listen, last offseason, what did he say? People don't come to Green Bay to play for the Packers. They come to play with Aaron Rodgers. Then you see him this offseason take a ridiculous amount of money, a ridiculous amount of your team salary cap. It leads the team into releasing a very good defender, maybe not as good as they thought he would be when they signed him, granted, but a very good defender who immediately got offered another deal. Now that deal has gone south for whatever reason. He's going to get offered another one in Zadarius Smith, and at least one or two other offensive players basically having to gut part of their roster just to accommodate bringing this dude back. And so you can stay there and play for that guy, or you can go to Vegas and play for your college teammate who is selfless, plays for the team, is passionate, is humble, and wants to win football games. And they have a better defense with cap space left over to sign more players if they need to. It's an easy choice. If you ask me, it's a very easy choice. I'm not saying that's why Davante Adams did it, but I'm saying that's why I would do the same thing. That's why I hope that's why he did it, because this is ridiculous. Like, the only thing the Packers have gained this offseason, James, after back-to-back NFC championship title fights, is the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to retire a Packer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not that like,
what does that get you? What
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If I'm the owner of that team, because the Green Bay Packers are the only publicly owned team, I'm irate right now. And I know Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers host, already stood down from the mantle trying to defend Aaron Rodgers as the greatest quarterback of all time, or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. This has to be eating him up alive.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers will go down as arguably the biggest diva in NFL history when it comes to quarterbacks. He's a mess, and he's in it for him. That's ultimately what it boils down to. You see, and I have to throw this comparison out because people have brought it up, and I saw somebody saying that Brady takes pay cuts because he's not as talented as Aaron Rodgers, and he can't lift the team up and play with lesser players.
Sorry, hang on, my eyes are still rolling.
Right? He has to leave all that extra cap room there so that he gets all the help in the world. Well, no, he leaves the extra cap room there because he knows it takes more than one guy. He leaves money on the table because he knows it takes 53 players to win a championship, and he wants the best talent around him that he possibly can, because this game is about winning championships. Guys take less money to play with him because they know they have an opportunity to win a championship. Nobody is going to Green Bay thinking, oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to take me to the promised land, because he hasn't done it in over a decade.
Yep.
That's what we're looking at here. So the best part about all of this is that the Green Bay Packers don't have one, but have 2 first-round picks, and neither one of them is going to be used on a wide receiver.
You know, I want to go the opposite route. I want to see the Green Bay Packers take 2 very young, talented wide receivers that are going to someday make Jordan Love a very, very rich man. That's what I want to see happen. And I am officially on the Raiders Super Bowl bandwagon outside of the Buccaneers. If the Bucs don't make it back for whatever reason or can't win the Lombardi, I want to see Davante Adams hoisting that trophy while Aaron Rodgers is whining about it on the Pat McAfee show. That's what I want to see happen.
I was going to say Bucs Raiders.
I would love that. Let's do that.
And then,
but obviously, I want the Bucs to win that matchup. You know,
so Davante still can't beat Tom Brady in the playoffs. That whole thing. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Like I said, just let the AFC West beat the ever-loving crap out of each other, and then by the time the Bucs get a hold of them in Super Bowl 57, they'll be battered and bruised and beaten, and the Bucs will win another Super Bowl.
All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a thought, a question, or you want to join in on the Aaron Rodgers bash party, you can give us a shout at 813-444-5841 or send us an email to lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. For David Harrison, I am James Yarko, and until we speak again, make sure you're checking out everything that we are doing over at bucksnation.com. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at LockedOnBucks, at JYarko_Bucks, at DHarrison82, and at Bucks_Nation. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.